A shocking discovery: the night John O'Keefe died. The crisp winter air of January 29, 2022, held a chilling secret in Canton, Massachusetts. John O'Keefe, a beloved Boston police officer, was found unresponsive in the snow. He was lying outside a home. The home belonged to a woman he was dating, Karen Reed. This wasn't just another winter's day, it was the beginning of a complex mystery. First responders rushed to the scene. There lay O'Keefe, his body exposed to the harsh elements. He was transported to the hospital. Tragically, he was pronounced dead. What happened to this seemingly healthy man? The question hung heavy in the air. News of O'Keefe's demise sent shockwaves. Friends, family, and the entire Boston Police Department were left reeling. He was a man known for his dedication and service. The investigation began immediately. Authorities were determined to uncover the truth behind this tragedy. Unraveling the mystery, the evidence unfolds. The investigation into John O'Keefe's death was complex. Every piece of evidence was crucial. One of the most significant pieces was Karen Reed's black SUV. It was found parked in the driveway of the home where O'Keefe was discovered. Investigators suspected it might hold vital clues. A closer look at the SUV revealed something startling. There was damage to the vehicle. A broken taillight and scratches on the bumper suggested a possible collision. Could this be linked to O'Keefe's injuries? The suspicion grew stronger. The SUV became a focal point of the investigation. Further examination revealed traces of blood on the vehicle. Whose blood was it? The answer seemed obvious, but forensic analysis was needed for confirmation. The pressure mounted to find a connection between the blood, the vehicle, and John O'Keefe's death. Meanwhile, investigators were also piecing together the digital trail. Text messages exchanged between Reed and O'Keefe on that fateful night became critical evidence. Witnesses speak out, piecing together the night. The investigation into John O'Keefe's death relied heavily on eyewitness accounts. People who had seen O'Keefe and read in the hours leading up to his death were sought out. Their testimonies became crucial pieces of the puzzle. One witness, a neighbor, reported hearing a commotion outside their home that night. They recalled the sound of an argument followed by a loud thud. The timing of this account coincided with the estimated time of O'Keefe's death. Another witness came forward, claiming to have seen a woman matching Reed's description driving erratically in the neighborhood that night. This testimony, if corroborated, could potentially link Reed to the scene of the crime. The prosecution saw this as a potentially damning piece of evidence. The accounts of these witnesses, while circumstantial, provided valuable insights into the events of that night. Karen's defense, a different perspective. From the outset, Karen Reed maintained her innocence. Her defense team presented a contrasting narrative, challenging the prosecution's theory of an intentional act. They argued that John O'Keefe's death was a tragic accident, fueled by a series of unfortunate events. Reed's legal team stated that she had dropped O'Keefe off at the residence after a night out with friends. They claimed she had no knowledge of his whereabouts after that point. The defense suggested that O'Keefe may have stumbled and fallen, succumbing to the freezing temperatures. Central to Reed's defense was the argument that the damage to her SUV was unrelated to O'Keefe's death. Her attorneys presented evidence suggesting the damage was pre-existing. They claimed the scratches and broken taillight were from a previous incident. The text, a cry for help or a smoking gun. The text message sent from Karen Reed's phone became a focal point of the trial. The prosecution presented it as a desperate plea for help. They argued that it was sent around the time of O'Keefe's death and implicated Reed in his demise. The message read, "Could help please, I'm in the back of a black RAV4, need help." The prosecution highlighted the phrase "need help," suggesting Reed was in distress. They argued that this distress was a result of her involvement in a hit-and-run incident involving O'Keefe. The timing of the message was also used to bolster the prosecution's case. It was sent in the early hours of the morning, coinciding with the estimated time of O'Keefe's death. However, the defense vehemently disputed this interpretation. They argued that the text message was taken out of context and had nothing to do with O'Keefe. Forensic evidence, between clarity and doubt. Forensic evidence played a crucial role in the Karen Reed trial. Both the prosecution and the defense relied heavily on scientific analysis to support their respective narratives. However, the interpretation of this evidence often differed, adding to the complexity of the case. One of the key pieces of forensic evidence was the blood found on Karen Reed's SUV. The prosecution argued that this blood belonged to John O'Keefe, linking him directly to the vehicle. They presented DNA evidence that they claimed matched O'Keefe's profile. The prosecution also presented forensic analysis of the damage to Reed's SUV. They argued that the pattern of damage was consistent with a collision with a human body. However, the defense challenged the reliability of this evidence. They argued that the amount of blood found on the vehicle was minimal and could have been transferred through secondary contact. The defense also presented their own forensic experts who testified that the damage to the SUV was inconsistent with a high-speed collision. The prosecution's case, building a narrative of guilt. The prosecution's case against Karen Reed hinged on the theory that she had struck and killed John O'Keefe with her SUV. They presented a narrative of a heated argument, a hit-and-run incident, and a subsequent cover-up. They argued that Reed and O'Keefe had gotten into an argument after a night out with friends. They suggested that this argument had escalated, leading to a physical altercation outside the residence. According to the prosecution's theory, Reed had struck O'Keefe with her SUV during this altercation. They pointed to the damage on the vehicle, the blood found at the scene, and the text message sent from Reed's phone as evidence to support this claim. The prosecution also highlighted inconsistencies in Reed's statements to investigators. They argued that she had changed her story multiple times, casting doubt on her credibility. The defense's response challenging assumptions. The defense team representing Karen Reed mounted a vigorous defense, challenging the prosecution's narrative at every turn. They painted a picture of a woman wrongly accused, a victim of circumstantial evidence and prosecutorial overreach. Central to the defense's strategy was the argument that John O'Keefe's death was a tragic accident. They presented evidence suggesting that O'Keefe had been drinking heavily on the night of his death and had potentially wandered off on his own. The defense argued that O'Keefe could have become disoriented and succumbed to the freezing temperatures. They pointed to the lack of eyewitnesses to the alleged hit-and-run and the absence of any motive for Reed to harm O'Keefe. The defense also challenged the prosecution's interpretation of the forensic evidence. They presented their own experts who testified that the damage to Reed's SUV was inconsistent with a high-speed collision. They argued that the blood found on the vehicle could have been transferred through secondary contact. The weight of evidence, jury's difficult decision. As the Karen Reed trial drew to a close, the jury was tasked with the daunting responsibility of weighing the evidence and reaching a verdict. They had heard weeks of testimony, reviewed countless exhibits, and listened to passionate arguments from both sides. The prosecution had presented a case built on circumstantial evidence, forensic analysis, and alleged inconsistencies in Reed's statements. They argued that the evidence pointed to a deliberate act, a hit-and-run fueled by anger and concealed by deceit. The defense, on the other hand, had painted a picture of a tragic accident, a confluence of unfortunate events that led to John O'Keefe's untimely demise. They argued that the prosecution had failed to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, relying on speculation and conjecture. The jury's decision rested on their interpretation of the evidence and their assessment of the credibility of the witnesses. They had to grapple with complex forensic reports, conflicting expert opinions, and emotional testimonies from those who knew and loved both Karen Reed and John O'Keefe. The weight of their decision was immense. Seeking justice, a community awaits the verdict. The Karen Reed trial captivated the attention of the nation, becoming a tragic saga that sparked intense debate and divided public opinion. As the jury deliberated, a community grappled with the complexities of the case, seeking justice for both John O'Keefe and Karen Reed. For the family and friends of John O'Keefe, the trial was an agonizing ordeal, a constant reminder of their profound loss. They sought answers, accountability, and a recognition of the pain and suffering they had endured. The Boston Police Department, still reeling from the loss of one of their own, awaited the verdict with a mix of anticipation and trepidation. They sought closure, hoping that justice would be served for their fallen comrade. Karen Reed's supporters, however, maintained her innocence, believing that she was a victim of circumstance, wrongly accused of a crime she did not commit. They rallied around her, offering words of encouragement and expressing their unwavering belief in her innocence. Unanswered questions, the lingering mystery. The jury in the Karen Reed trial delivered a split verdict, finding her guilty of manslaughter but acquitting her of the more serious charges of murder and motor vehicle homicide. The verdict, while providing some measure of closure, left many unanswered questions and a lingering sense of unease. The trial exposed the limitations of evidence, the subjectivity of interpretation, and the enduring power of doubt. Despite weeks of testimony and mountains of evidence, a definitive account of what transpired on that fateful night remained elusive. The prosecution's theory, while compelling in its narrative, relied heavily on circumstantial evidence and inferences drawn from forensic analysis. The truth, it seemed, remained shrouded in mystery, a testament to the complexities of human behavior and the enduring power of the unknown.